Chicago winter mornings are no joke. They hit you like a wall of ice the second you step outside. I remember that day so clearly. It was bitterly cold, and I had just finished one of the longest night shifts in weeks. My name is Margaret Wilson, and I've worked as an ER nurse at Chicago General for over a decade. That morning, I was running on pure adrenaline, my body aching, my mind buzzing from everything I'd just seen. 3 CPR calls, an emergency surgery, barely a moment to breathe. As I clocked out and slipped into my jeans and sweater, all I wanted was to crawl into bed and forget about the world. But when I checked my phone, there was a message from James, my husband. Heading to work early this morning. Could you take Ryan to school? Abby was up late last night. Better to let her rest. Love you. Simple. But something about it rubbed me the wrong way. I can't explain it. Maybe it was the way he worded it. Maybe it was just the tone, or the fact that this was the 3rd time this week he'd left before sunrise. I stared at the message for a second longer than usual before replying. Okay, take care. Love you too. I told myself not to overthink it. The real estate market had picked up. James said he was juggling new clients, closing deals. Long hours were part of the job. And I believed him. Mostly. When I got home, snow had started falling again. Just that soft, quiet kind that makes the world feel slower. Our house looked the same as it always did. Modest, 2-story, tucked in a quiet Chicago suburb. It was the same house we bought 10 years ago, when everything felt full of possibility. The second I stepped inside, Ryan greeted me. Mom, welcome. Home. He was already dressed, sitting at the kitchen table with his cereal and a stack of homework. I walked over, kissed the top of his head. Morning, sweetheart. Finished your homework? Almost. But this math part's kinda tricky. I sat next to him and glanced at the sheet. He was always good at science, even history. But math, yeah. Math gave him a bit of trouble. Where's Dad? He asked. Said he left early. New client or something. Ryan opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but stopped. I noticed. I always notice with him. But I didn't press. Lately, he'd been quieter, like his mind was somewhere else. I chalked it up to him growing up. Puberty, maybe. Kids get quiet when things start changing. And Aunt Abby? Still sleeping? I think. Dad said she was up late. Abby had been staying with us for a few months now. Her divorce had hit hard. 3 years of marriage gone in a flash after she found out her husband had cheated. She was wrecked when she first moved in. Barely left her room. I told her to stay as long as she needed. That's what sisters do, right? You ready for school? Bus will be here soon. Ryan packed up his bag, pulled on his jacket. As I handed him a sandwich, he said, I might be a little late today, studying math with Mike after school. Okay, but come straight home after, all right? He nodded, hugged me quick, and walked out the door. I watched him through the window, this little person carrying more on his shoulders than he should. After doing a few chores around the house, I headed upstairs to check on Abby. I knocked gently on her door. No answer. I opened it slightly. The bed was made, room empty, no note, no text, just gone. It was strange. Abby never left early, especially not in the freezing cold. I stood there for a second, looking at the perfectly neat bed. Something didn't sit right, but I didn't text her. I told myself she's an adult. She probably just needed some fresh air or went out to clear her head. Still, as I crawled into my own bed, body sinking into the mattress, I couldn't shake it. James leaving earlier. Abby acting different. Ryan retreating into himself. Something felt off. Like we were all dancing around something no one wanted to say out loud. But I brushed the thought away. Maybe we were just tired. Maybe that was all it was. just tired. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in the hospital cafeteria, staring into a cup of lukewarm coffee I hadn't touched. I was supposed to be eating lunch, but honestly, I couldn't taste anything anymore. Across from me, Diana, one of my closest colleagues, placed her coffee on the table and gave me a look. One of those quiet, worried looks that only people who know you well can pull off. "Margaret, you okay? You look worn out," she said. Gently, I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a lot going on. You know how these night shifts are." But it wasn't just the night shifts. I was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. There was this weight I couldn't explain, and lately, I was carrying it everywhere I went. Diana leaned in a little. "Can I ask something personal?" I nodded slowly. "Is Abby still staying with you?" "Yeah, she is," I said, sipping my coffee just to avoid her eyes. "She seems different lately," Diana said carefully. "I saw her at the bookstore the other day dressed up, smiling. I mean, that's good, right?" "It is," I replied. But even to my own ears, it sounded hollow. Then she added, like she was testing the waters, "And James? He's still getting home late?" Something in my chest tightened. "Yeah, he says the market's picking up again. More clients. Late meetings." Diana didn't push. She just nodded, lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't ask her what she was really thinking. I already had a pretty good idea. When I got home that evening, Ryan was in his room with the door closed. That used to be rare. He usually liked doing his homework at the kitchen table, asking me a million questions, snacking, laughing. But now, silence. I knocked gently. "Ryan, dinner's ready?" "I'm not hungry," he said through the door. That was the third time this week. I opened the door slowly and found him sitting on his bed, hugging his knees, eyes fixed on the floor. "Sweetheart, what's going on?" I sat down beside him. He shrugged. "Nothing." "Is something bothering you at school? Is someone being mean to you?" "No," he mumbled. I tried to meet his eyes. "Then what is it?" He hesitated, then whispered so quietly I almost missed it. "I don't understand grown-up things." My heart stopped for a second. "What do you mean?" I asked softly. He just shook his head. "Never mind." I wanted to press. I wanted to keep asking. But he looked so small, so scared. I didn't want to make it worse. I rubbed his back gently and said, "Okay. When you're ready to talk, I'm here." He nodded. But something in me knew. He had already seen something. The next night at work, I was checking charts at the nursing station when I made a mistake. A big one. I wrote down the wrong medication on a patient's chart. If Dr. Carter hadn't caught it during rounds, it could have been disastrous. After he corrected it, he pulled me aside. "Margaret, are you sure everything's okay?" I nodded too quickly. "Yes, just tired." But my hands were still shaking. Later that night, Diana found me in the staff lounge. "You're not yourself lately," she said. "Even the doctors are noticing." I looked at her and tried to hold it together. "I don't know what's going on," I finally said. "Everything just feels strange." Diana hesitated. "I'm going to ask you again, and I don't mean to pry, but Margaret, are you sure there's nothing going on at home?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know," I said quietly. "I want to believe everything's fine. I really do. But," she waited, "but something's changed. And I can't put my finger on it. James is distant. Abby's suddenly glowing like she's found a second life. And Ryan's eyes look like he's carrying something no 12-year-old should carry." There was silence between us. heavy and still. I looked down at my hands and said, more to myself than to Diana, I need to trust them. I want to trust them. But why do I feel like I'm being lied to? I was getting ready for another night shift when Susan, our head nurse, pulled me aside. The ER was already buzzing, but something in her expression made everything else fade out. She looked hesitant, like whatever she was about to say, she didn't want to say it. Margaret, she whispered, can we talk privately? We stepped into the break room, just a few steps from the chaos, but it suddenly felt like we were in a different world. Susan looked around, then back at me. This might not be my place, but last Saturday I saw something at the mall. My stomach dropped. I don't know why. I didn't even know what she was about to say yet, but I felt it. I saw James. I blinked. Okay? She took a breath. He wasn't alone. He was with Abby. I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. Well, maybe they ran into each other. No, she said softly. They were holding hands, laughing. The way they looked at each other. It didn't seem innocent. Everything inside me went still. I wanted to laugh it off, make a joke, say she must have been mistaken. But my heart was pounding in my ears, and my mouth had gone dry. You knew? She asked gently. I shook my head. No, I didn't know. I suspected something. I didn't want to believe it. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. My chest felt tight, like something sharp was pressing down. Susan reached out, placed a hand on my arm. I'm so sorry, Margaret. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but you're my friend. I nodded. But I couldn't speak. My throat was closing up, my eyes burning. I didn't cry. Not fully. Just a few tears that I wiped away before anyone else could see. That night, I threw myself into work. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to feel. I just needed to keep moving. But around 2 a.m., the ER speakers cracked with urgency. Code blue, emergency treatment room. Code blue. We all moved fast. I barely had time to register what was happening, just that multiple critical patients were inbound from a car crash. 3 victims, severe trauma. We prepped the rooms, cleared equipment, got ready for the worst. Then my phone rang. Normally, I ignore calls during a shift, especially during an emergency. But something in my gut told me to look. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Wilson? Yes. This is Officer Landon with Chicago PD. Your husband, sister, and son have been in a serious accident. They're being transported to Chicago General right now. Everything stopped. My hands went numb. I'm already here, I managed to say. I'm at the hospital. The line went dead. I didn't remember hanging up. I didn't remember walking toward the ER doors. I moved like I wasn't even in my body. My legs felt disconnected, my breath shallow. I pushed through the double. Doors of the trauma ward. Lights were flashing. Monitors beeping. Doctors calling out vitals. Where are they? I yelled. Where's my family? Susan found me first. She grabbed my shoulders, steadied me. Come with me, she said quietly. She led me through the chaos, back to the far end of the treatment room. There were 3 stretchers. I saw James first. His face was bloodied, his arm bent in a way it shouldn't be. Next to him was Abby. Her forehead was wrapped, her lips split, her face bruised and swollen. And then Ryan. My baby. His body looked so small. There was a thick bandage around his head, an oxygen mask over his mouth. He didn't move. He didn't even twitch. I stepped forward, heart racing, but Dr. Carter blocked me gently. Margaret, stop. It's better if you don't see them right now. Why? I asked, voice shaking. Tell me what's happening. Are they alive? They're all unconscious, he said quietly. We'll explain everything once the police arrive. The police? My voice cracked. Why the police? Wasn't it just an accident? The doors opened again behind me. I turned. 2 officers stepped in. One older, one younger. Mrs. Wilson? The older one said. I'm Detective Johnson. This is my partner, Detective Lee. We need to speak with you in private. But I couldn't look away from the stretchers, from the wreckage of what was supposed to be my family. James, Abby, my son. They didn't just break my heart. They wrecked everything. And now, whatever they were hiding, it wasn't just a secret anymore. It was blood and bandages and broken bodies lying in front of me. They led me to a quiet room off the main ER floor. Just me, the detectives, Dr. Carter, and Susan, who stayed close, gently holding my arm like she knew I might collapse any second. I sat down, numb, staring at nothing, while my heart beat so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. Detective Johnson spoke first. His voice was steady, but soft. Mrs. Wilson, I'm very sorry for what you're going through, but there are some concerning elements about tonight's accident. I blinked slowly. Concerning? There were witnesses. They reported hearing shouting inside the car just before it veered off the road and hit a tree. A heated argument. We believe it might not have been just a simple accident. I shook my head. What were they arguing about? He paused, then glanced at his partner, Detective Lee, who reached into an evidence bag and pulled out a phone. My husband's. She slid it across the table toward me. This was recovered at the scene. It wasn't locked. A message was open when we found it. I didn't want to look. But I did. The message was to Abby. Tonight, let's tell Margaret everything. Now that Ryan knows, we can't keep hiding it. It'll destroy his heart if we continue like this. My stomach twisted. That was the moment everything I had been trying not to believe came crashing down. The silence. The long nights. The changes in Abby. The way Ryan had looked at me, like he was trying to protect me from something he didn't know how to say. James and Abby. They weren't just hiding something from me. They had involved my son in it. My 12-year-old boy had been carrying the weight of their betrayal. My hands were shaking as I whispered. He knew. Ryan knew. Detective Lee opened another bag and gently placed a folded piece of paper in front of me. We found this in your son's backpack. I opened it slowly, like it might explode. It was a page from one of his school notebooks. The handwriting was a little messy, full of scratched out words and uneven lines, but I could read every word clearly. Today I saw Dad and Aunt Abby kissing in the kitchen. I don't know how to tell Mom. Dad told me it's grown-up business and not to say anything. But I hate lying. I hate seeing Mom sad. What should I do? I pressed the paper to my chest, and for the first time that night, I broke. The tears came so fast I couldn't stop them. I couldn't breathe. My body shook with sobs I had no control over. Susan knelt beside me, holding me like a child. And all I could say was, he didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve any of this. That night, while my husband and sister lay unconscious in hospital beds, my son, the one person who never lied to me, had been drowning in a secret that wasn't his to carry. A child should never have to protect a parent from the truth. Dr. Carter finally spoke, clearing his throat gently. Margaret, I wanted to tell you earlier, but things were moving too fast. Ryan's injuries are serious, but there's brain activity. His condition is critical, but stable. He's in a coma, yes, but we're seeing small movements, flickers, signs of life. That's a good thing. I looked up through tear-blurred eyes. So he might wake up? He nodded. We can't make promises, but there's hope. The next 24 hours are important. We'll monitor him closely. Hope. A tiny thread, but it was something. I wiped my face with my sleeve, still gripping Ryan's note. Please just let me sit with him. If he wakes up, I want to be the first face he sees. Of course, Dr. Carter said softly. I stood slowly, knees still weak, and followed him down the hallway. Each step felt like walking through quicksand. My body was heavy with pain, but there was one thing that kept me moving. My son was still alive, and he needed me now more than ever. A week passed. The hospital halls had become a second home again. But this time I wasn't the nurse walking in to save someone's life. I was the mother waiting outside a room, praying for her son to wake up. Ryan was still in a coma, though his doctors were hopeful. He'd moved his fingers a few times. And once, when I was humming a lullaby from when he was little, his eyelids fluttered. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me breathing. James and Abby had both regained consciousness 3 days ago. They were in separate rooms now, both recovering from their injuries, neither of them reaching out to me. I hadn't gone to see them. Not until now. But I needed to. Not for them. For Ryan. I needed to hear it out loud. I needed to look them in the eyes and ask the question that had burned a hole in my heart. I knocked once, then walked into James's room. He was sitting up in bed, his arm in a cast, face still bruised. Abby was in the corner, sitting stiffly, in a chair. Her eyes widened when she saw me. James blinked, as if unsure whether I was real. Margaret, he said, voice scratchy and low. I didn't respond to his greeting. I just stood there for a moment, then asked one word. Why? The silence that followed was so loud I could hear the beeping of his heart monitor in the background. James looked down. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. My jaw clenched. How was it supposed to happen? He swallowed. After Abby's divorce, she was broken. We just talked at first. I was trying to comfort her. And then it crossed a line. A line, I repeated. You crossed a line. With my sister. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, eyes finally meeting mine. I still don't. Abby spoke then, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry, Margaret. I swear to you, I didn't plan it. It just happened. And once it started, I didn't know how to stop it. I stared at her. This was the same girl I shared a bedroom with growing up. The one I protected in school. The one who cried on my shoulder the night her marriage ended. You didn't know how to stop? I said quietly. You were living in my house, laughing with my son, sleeping under my roof while sneaking around with my husband. And you're telling me you didn't know how to stop? Abby covered her face with her hands, crying softly. James reached out like he wanted to touch me. I stepped back. He saw you, I said. Ryan saw you in the kitchen, kissing, and you told him. It was grown-up business and not to tell me. You told a 12-year-old boy to keep your dirty secret. James's face crumpled. I didn't mean for him to get hurt. But he did, I said, my voice shaking. He changed. He pulled away from me. He stopped eating, stopped laughing. He couldn't sleep. And I thought maybe it was school or puberty or something else. But no, it was the two people he trusted most lying to his face and asking him to carry that weight alone. I turned to Abby. You didn't just betray me. You broke him. You broke a little boy's heart. And for what? No one answered. There was nothing they could say. I took a deep breath, and the weight in my chest started to lift. Not because anything was fixed, but because I was finally done. I'm filing for divorce, I said, steady and sure. "This is the end of us, James. And Abby, I don't know what you are to me anymore, but it's not family." James opened his mouth, but I didn't give him the chance to speak. I walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had just stepped out to grab a cup of coffee when the nurses came rushing down the hallway. Dr. Carter spotted me first. His smile was small but real. "Margaret," he said, "he's awake." I didn't breathe. I just ran. When I opened the door to Ryan's room, I saw his eyes, those warm brown eyes, half-lidded, confused, but open. He looked so small in that bed, so fragile. But he was here. He was still here. "Mom?" he whispered, his voice scratchy. I rushed to his side, took his hand, kissed it over and over. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." His fingers trembled around mine. "I want to be with you." Tears spilled down my cheeks, but they weren't heavy this time. They were full of something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. "You don't have to carry anything alone anymore," I whispered. "It's just you and me now. And we're going to be okay." And we were. A year later, I'm standing in a sunlit kitchen in our new home. It's smaller, quieter, tucked into a neighborhood where Ryan can walk to school and I can work shorter shifts at a nearby clinic. He laughs in the other room, real laughter, loud and alive. He's doing better in school, making friends, learning to trust the world again. James writes to him once a month. He moved to the West Coast, started volunteering, and is getting help. Ryan doesn't always respond, but sometimes he does. And Abby, she started working at a women's support center. She sent letters too. First to me, then to Ryan. They were careful, respectful, never asking for anything. 3 months ago, I sent one back. Last week, we spoke on the phone. And today, she knocked on our door. When I opened it, she stood there holding a bouquet of flowers, eyes nervous. "May I come in?" I let her. She knelt when Ryan came in. "Hey, kiddo. How's school?" He hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged her. Margaret, the woman I used to be, might have closed the door forever. But the person I've become, she knows forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. Later that night, after Ryan went to bed, I opened my journal. The same one I've been writing in since the night of the accident. Today, Abby came to the house. Something I never thought possible a year ago. The wounds haven't completely healed, but we're moving forward. One step at a time. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. But what matters is what we do when everything breaks. Whether we stand back up, whether we choose healing over hate, forgiveness over silence. Every ending is also a new beginning. If you've ever been through something like this, if your heart's ever been broken by the people you trusted most, I want you to know, you're not alone. And if this story touched something in you, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you've been through or what you've overcome. Because sometimes the most healing thing in the world is knowing someone else understands.